بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Do not say that the people that die on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as dead, nay, they are with your Lord receiving sustenance. لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. The first of your loudest salawats in honor of the greatest man to walk this earth, Al-Habib Al-Mustafa Muhammad. The second in honor of the greatest lady to walk this earth, Al-Hawra Al-Batulati Fatimah. The third with your loudest voice is in honor of Imam Sahib Al-Asri Wal-Zaman. We start tonight, inshallah, by first and foremost sending our heartfelt condolences to Imam Sahib Al-Asri Wal-Zaman on the tragic occasion of the start of Muharram Al-Haram. And inshallah, to start off, respected scholars, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, tonight will be dedicated to looking at the secrets behind the immortality of the sacrifice of Imam Hussain alayhi afdal salati wassalam. Inshallah, we're going to look at this particular sacrifice and its immortality in 4 stages tonight, inshallah. The first and foremost is we want to define the aspect of immortality. We're going to look at dictionary definition, different views of people on the concept of immortality. Secondly, we're going to look into the history books. We're going to look at the past and present and learn people that have tried to attain immortality and the different forms that it may take. Thirdly, we're going to look at the effects of the immortality of Imam Hussain alayhi afdal salati wassalam. As in, after what he did to attain immortality, we want to look at the effects in order that we slowly but surely gain momentum into thinking what kind of person is Imam Hussain and what did he do to achieve these effects. And inshallah, we're going to conclude by looking at the reason, or one of the many reasons, that Imam al-Hussain wrote his name in the books of immortality and khuld, inshallah. So to start off tonight, let's bless this majlis one final time, inshallah, with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we look within the dictionary and look to the idea of immortality and the definition, we find that the dictionary definition is to attain eternal life or to live forever. When we look at people that have come and talk about this particular issue, we come across people such as Steve Cave. And he's been on many different talks talking about immortality. One of the talks he spoke at TED, which he says immortality can be categorized into 4 different types. The first of which is the lengthy life, which we can look at nowadays to be the people that talk about the fountain of youth, living forever, and we know that's not the case. So he says that's one form of immortality. The second is the idea of resurrection, to be immortal because you're going to be resurrected. The third, he says, is that your soul after death lives on. That's a form of immortality to him. And the fourth and final one he talks about is the idea of a legacy, to be left behind. in order that you are immortal after your death. So these are the different types that he talks about. Now looking into the history books, let's look at the different people that tried to attain immortality. We know many people throughout history have tried to do things on their own. Many people have tried to freeze themselves within ice. Many people have attributed to this, such as the Walt Disney, let's say. People attribute him to freezing himself. So one day if technology comes to a particular level, they may be able to revive him. People within the Holy Quran thought they can live forever and that they're immortal, such as Fir'aun. In Surah Al-Nazi'at, chapter 79, Fir'aun comes and he tells us all, he says, I am your Lord the Most High. قَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. He thought that he'll live forever. Within the Quran, it tells us there's no such thing. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul shall taste death. Even the prophets, which were the greatest of creations, our imams, they'll all taste death eventually. Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse number 8. It says, وَمَا كَانُوا خَالِدِينَ, in reference to the prophets. Poem attributed to Ali ibn Abi Talib states, in reference to death, he says, الْمَوْتْ لَا وَالِدٌ يُبْقِي وَلَا وَلَدًا هَذَا السَّبِيلُ إِلَىٰ أَنْ لَا تَرَى أَحَدًا هذا النبي ولم يخلد لأمته لو خلد الله خلقا قبله خلدا الموت فينا سهام غير خاطئة من فاته اليوم سهم لم يفته غدا. He says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam Ali says that Allah states that everyone shall taste death. And if Allah was to allow someone to live forever, it would have been the greatest of his creation, the Prophet of Islam. However, even he himself tasted death. He says death is like arrows that will never miss. They're appointed for you. So if an arrow misses you today, it will surely not miss you tomorrow. So it tells us this, that's one type of immortality down the drain, because you cannot live forever physically. Every soul shall taste death. Therefore, what kind of immortality are we talking about? Pharaohs tried to take their organs, mummify them, tried to preserve them, thinking that they're going to live forever. Now, there's a particular type of immortality that I want to get to allow you to understand further. But we need something that everyone can relate to. And inshallah, many of us have seen, I think, the movie called Troy, 2004. I think the actor was Brad Pitt. A lot of people have smiles, so I'm happy about that. There's a particular section in which Troy's Achilles is trying to go towards the land of Troy. And he has a conversation with his mother by the water. She says they're going to come for you. You have two options. One, you stay here. He says you'll find a nice wife, you'll have children, and they'll remember your name if you stay here in Larissa. However, he says if you choose to go, because your kids, they'll remember your name, your grandchildren probably forget it. If you go and fight that particular battle in Troy, he says you'll be remembered for eternity. That your legacy will remain. People will remember you, will write stories about you. Mind you, he didn't do anything significant except be a valiant warrior, let's say, by the depiction of the movie, not so much the Greek side of things. However, she says that your legacy is hand in hand with your doom. So by attaining death, you will make a name for yourself. You will live forever. Take that into particular consideration. It's worlds apart from the sacrifice of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. But the concept of the idea of immortality, that's the first drop in the ocean. And inshallah we're going to go towards Abu Abdullah's sacrifice. So that's the final type of immortality, or gaining immortality. Now let's look at the immortality of Imam Hussein. What did it materialize into? What effects does it have till now, till this Muharram? Imam Hussein, everyone throughout history tried to fight him. Everyone, every oppressor throughout history tried their best to bring down the name of Imam Hussein. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the verse that we stated, لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. Says he, because sacrificed himself for me, I will allow him to live on. And being the greatest of martyrs, however a person tries to bring down the name of Hussein, it comes even higher. What drives us with all the oppression to keep going to this man? The Abbasid Khalifa's time, we find many of them didn't allow anyone to go towards Imam Hussein. If you went, you had to cut off a limb. I don't know what's more severe than that. But yet many stories we hear, even with that particular prosecution, saying that if you want to go visit Imam Hussein, they'll cut off a limb, people will still go out. What's that fire in people's heart that wants to go towards Imam Hussein? One year they'll cut off their arm. The next year the same people would come. They'll cut the opposite limb, their leg, then hand, then leg. Then we have that particular idea that لو قطعوا أرجلنا واليدين نأتيك زحفا سيدي يا Hussein. What drives us? Harun al-Rashid's time, they tried to bring down the name of Hussein. The way that people used to go towards the grave of Imam Hussein, no one had anything built around it in the time of Harun. There was a particular plant, Arabic is called the sidra, that built itself on the grave of Aba Abdullah. It was used to identify where Aba Abdullah was buried. People would go towards this particular sidra and know that Imam al-Hussein is buried there. Identifying it, Prophet has a hadith, subhanallah, he says, may Allah remove his mercy from the person that cuts off the sidra. لعن الله قاطع السدرة. From the time of the Prophet, Harun al-Rashid cuts it off. He says, I don't want anyone going towards Hussein. People come and they'll see there's no more tree. A group of people came, they said, we don't know where Imam Hussein's shrine is or his grave. Let's just say ziyarah from here and go back. A person from them, he says, no, I've come this far. Let me go closer. So this person, he works with fragrances. So he picks up a particular part of Karbala, smells it, puts it back. Goes to another section, picks up, smells it, puts it back. Or you know, a person in his place of expertise, who knows fragrances better than a person that works with it? Until he got to a section where he lifted up a bit of soil. He smelt it, he says, I've been working 20 years with fragrances. He says, I do not lie to you when I tell you this fragrance that I have just smelt is not from the fragrances of this earth. He says, this is where the grave of Aba Abdullah is. A person comes to Imam al-Sadiq and he states, oh Imam, if we were to open the grave of Aba Abdullah, what would we find? What would be in the grave of Aba Abdullah if we dug it up now? Imam al-Sadiq says, do not even think about it. دع عنك هذا لقد سألت عن شيء عظيم. You have asked about a thing that is greater than you. Leave these ideas from your mind. What's in the grave of Aba Abdullah? Who is Aba Abdullah when the Prophet goes on Mi'raj before the birth of Imam Hussein? He comes back, tells his companion, he says, when I went to the point in which Jibreel had to return, when I went up to Sidrat al-Muntaha, I saw what I saw. He says, I saw on the right-hand side of the Arsh. He says, I saw that Imam Hussain is the beacon of guidance and the ship of salvation. إن الحسين مصباح هدى وسفينة نجاة. Who is this Hussein? What has he done to attain this particular rank? Everything that comes into contact with the world of Imam Hussein is cherished, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates it. A turba, normal turba, there's 9 sections or 9 levels until Allah accepts the prayers. The turba of Imam Hussein, he says, no. You pray on the turba of Imam Hussein, you only have 1 level to attain, and your salah is accepted. Just your niyyah. Why is Imam Hussein mentioned in every single part of the year? There's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. Ramadan comes, the most blessed of nights, Layl al-Qadr, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. The middle of Rajab, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. Middle of Sha'ban, ziyarah for Imam Hussein. In Hajj, Arafah, Imam Hussein. There's a 40th, Ziyarat al-Arba'in. Why is Imam Hussein always in the pinnacle of Islam? Always in the forefront. Always there that we need to take and move forward with his name. There's a very important scholar that we need to know of. His name is Abdul Hussein Al-Amini. He's the one that compiled the book set telling us of the incident of Ghadir. He traveled all over the world in order that he collects the traditions that tell us about Ghadir Khum. Compiled it not just from our books, from other books, in order to find the unification between everyone about the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. He dies. His son sees him in a dream. Look at the aspect of Imam Hussein in this. His son sees him in a dream. He says, "Oh father, I see that you're very blessed in what Allah has given you." He says, "Yes, my son." He says, "No doubt this is from your hard work and from all those years you spent going around the world to get these particular ahadiths and compile this book." He says, "No, my son, all that hard work, this is not the blessings for it." He says, "What's the blessings that you're in from?" He says, "I thank Allah, He has given me the blessing to read Ziyarat Ashura every night. And this is what this blessing is from." And alhamdulillah, we all read it together before we started tonight. He says, "My blessing is from that." Why? Because it contained within that world which is Imam Hussein. All these effects. The world changes for Hussein. So we're in Britain. There's a particular book written. It's called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. For all those that have the idea and the question, did the skies weep blood on the 10th of Muharram or not? Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, page 35, bottom left-hand side. In the year 685 AD, it narrates, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, every year and the major events that happened. 685, only one event is particularly mentioned. Nothing else. He says, in Britain, that year was the year it was known that the skies wept blood. And all the milk and the butter that people had within their households and in their farms turned into blood. I said, the problem is if you tell them hadith, people say, we're going to question it. But if a person writes it from outside, everyone's like, this is a very reliable source. Everything changes when it comes into contact with the concept and the world of Imam Hussein. What has he done to achieve this particular aspect of immortality that we're going to look at. What can we learn in order that we can apply it to our lives on the 21st century basis? This great man that we commemorate year after year after year. Let's look at the mission of Imam Hussain to understand what aspects did he do and what we can do to attain immortality. Imam Hussain set out. Everyone knows the incidents, we have to repeat the particular incidents, but let's look at how and why he set out. People come and say Imam Hussain was sent out and went out from his particular land towards Kufa or towards Karbala because he sought worldly gains. Let's look at the worldly gains. Nowadays, what do we go and achieve if it's worldly? Money, wealth, property, or a position. Let's take these particular factors. If he's going out for worldly desires, if he's going out chasing the world, Imam Hussain, let's look at it. In the aspect of money. So some come and say, well, Imam Hussain went out seeking money. Khilafah has a lot of money. Let's look at the household that raised this great man. In order that we learn, did this man be raised in a household in which they taught him to go after the worldly desires? Wealth, what do we know about Fatima al-Zahra? On her wedding night, what do we know? Prophet brings her a wedding gown. The night before her wedding, a woman comes, I'm getting married as well. You're the house of the Prophet of Islam. So let's imagine it nowadays, brothers and sisters. Let's be out of complete honesty. Which bride would give her wedding dress the day before her wedding? Which bride would give her wedding dress? If it's not ordered 6 months before, maybe a year before, all the Instagram posts come, I want this one, a bit of this particular part, and big money is spent. Let's think about it. A day before, a person comes and knocks your door, says, I want your wedding dress. Do you have anything for me? So Fatima al-Zahra goes inside. She has 2 dresses, her normal one and the one she's just gained. Which one would you take? Obviously, you can give her the old one. Fatima al-Zahra looks at the 2 dresses, and the traditions tell us she remembered Surah Al-Imran chapter 3 verse 92. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحب. You will not achieve righteousness except that you will give from that which you love. Takes the new dress, gives it to that woman. Tell me, if Imam Hussain is raised in this household, he's going after worldly desires? Or Ali ibn Abi Talib, where do we start? Where do we finish? Where do we start with Ali? Ali ibn Abi Talib, in his time in Khilafah, people might look and say, no, well, everyone was poor at the time of the Prophet. In the time he was Khalifa, we know exactly what the first 3 did, what kind of lifestyles they lived, and the ones after Ali as well, what kind of lifestyles they lived, what kind of wealth they enjoyed, what kind of food they ate, what kind of clothes they wore. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in his Khilafah, in Kufa, Kumail narrates to us. He says, on the pulpit, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I saw him very strange one day. Why? He says he's giving a speech with his abba, he's fluttering it, flapping it, however you want to say it. Basically, he's just doing this the whole time. Kumail comes after the lecture to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yes, Kumail. What were you doing on the pulpit with your abba? In his khilafah. He says, Kumail, Allah bear witnesses on me. This is the only abba I have on. I washed it, I wore it as I'm giving a lecture. And it's still not dry. Tell me a household that has him as a father and Fatima as a mother. Would you go after worldly desires? Salman al-Muhammadi one day comes out of the mosque. Companions see him. He says, who's in the mosque? He says, Rasulullah, and a man I have no idea who he is. Companions go inside the mosque. See Rasulullah, salam alaikum, wa alaikum salam. Then they see Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, hold on, you said Salman is a great rank. Luqman هذه الأمة, Salman minna أهل البيت. Why is Salman lying? Everyone knows Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, call me Salman. Salman, did you say this? He says, yes. He says, what's your justification? He says, oh Rasulullah, I heard you say. He says, oh Ali, no one knows you except Allah and me. You think we'll ever reach to attain an aspect of who Amir al-Mu'mineen is? He has a famous quote. What does he say? He says, أما والله لقد رقعت مدرعتي حتى استحييت من راقعها. He says, I patched my garment so much that I'm embarrassed of how much patches it has. This person is going to go after worldly desires. A person that lived in this household when the people that had this rank lived in mansions and castles is going to go after worldly desires. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in some of the houses he lived in, he used to get up, his head would hit the ceiling. He's going to go after worldly desires. Wealth, position, people say he was going just to attain the khilafah, just that chair of khilafah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the three khalifas, the death of the third one came. A companion came to Amir al-Mu'mineen after the death of the third. He says, people have crowded your house because they want to give you bay'ah to be their khalifa. You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen was doing? He was patching his shoe. He says, Ali, did you not hear me? He says, the people have come towards your house in order that they give bay'ah to you to be the khalifa. Keeps patching his shoes. He says, oh companion of mine. He says, what's the value of this particular shoe that I'm fixing? He says, it doesn't have a value. He says, this shoe is more valuable to me than this khilafah of yours. Imam Hussain is going to go after a chair? Tell me. Someone comes and says, Imam Hussain went out against the armies of Yazid for money? Or did he go out for a position when he's raised in such a household of the Prophet of Islam and Ali and Fatima? The beauty is so when it's compared, so let's look at the first four comparison. People come and say that the aspect of Khilafah, the chair of Khilafah, gave the first three their value. However, Ali gave the Khilafah its value. Look at the difference. There's one aspect, the position you're in gives you value. And there's another aspect, when you're so magnanimous in your character, you give the position that you're in value. That's Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the chair we know is only for who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen. So Bahlul one day, he sat on the chair of Harun al-Rashid. He wasn't there, he was mostly drunken Harun. Bahlul, you know, he's one of the scholars of Ahl al-Bayt, but he pretends to be insane, yet he still gets his message across. Many lessons we can learn from Bahlul. He sits on the chair of Harun al-Rashid one day. When he sits, the guards catch him. Harun comes in, they begin to beat Bahlul up severely. When they beat him up, Bahlul begins to cry. Then they stop. He's still crying. Harun's like, okay, they've stopped. Why are you still crying? He says, oh, Amir, I'm not crying for myself. He says, why are you crying? He says, I cry for you. He says, for me? Why are you crying for me? I'm the king. He says, I sat on a chair for a few seconds. Look what happened to me. And the chair is not mine. He says, you've sat on that chair for your whole life. What's going to happen to you? Gives us lessons. But we can conclude that Imam Hussain never went out in order to gain money. Nor did he go out to attain a position. What does that teach us before we move on? On our 21st century basis, in the West, what can we learn from this particular aspect of Imam Hussein's message? Let's look at money, let's look at position. Many other aspects we can look at. Let's look at just these two. And our lives in the West. Imam al-Hussein teaches us that if we go after money, let's say money, do we go out like the followers of Al-Muhammad, or do we go out like the followers of the opposition army? What do I mean? We know many stories of people that money gets between brothers and brothers, father and sons. Money gets between families and destroys them. Many of us want to gain money. We do stuff that Ahlul Bayt are not proud of, just to gain that particular money. Imam al-Hussein, when a position with wealth comes about, does he go and sacrifice his morals? Does he sacrifice his position? Does he sacrifice the principles in which he grew up on and protects? Whereas us, as we are the followers of this great man, do we uphold this particular aspect within our transactions? That this particular dirt of this world gets between us and a brother of ours, or us and one of our parents, or us or with the general communities, general public. Be it a Muslim or not Muslim, doesn't make a difference. Many of us will sacrifice what Imam Hussein stands for in order to gain that particular dirt of this world. That won't even come with us when we go towards that. All that will buy us will be a shroud to wrap us in this thing that we fight over. When it comes to positions, it's not so much in the Islamic countries, but let's look at the West because we're living in it. Many people would come and say, well, I need to attain a particular rank in my company or someone that I work for. However, I need to impress them. How do I impress them? I have to go towards them with their parties. I need to go with them if they have, let's say, alcohol served. Wal-iyadhu billah. Or in a place where not necessarily most of the things are halal, that most are haram. But I'll go there. Why? Because that particular person will see me. He may be impressed with me. Why do I sacrifice my morality, my principles, in order to gain respect of someone or to gain a position in a particular company? Do you really think that decision is with that particular person or with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Our brothers, our sisters in the West, so many of us, as I'm talking about different places around the world, we see many Muslims in non-Muslim places. And inshallah, that doesn't apply to anyone here in the room. So we've seen many people of Islamic principles and are Muslims and are the followers of Ahlul Bayt, yet they go to places such as the nightclub, such as the concerts. But inshallah, we can only be under the banner in which Imam Ali says, never judge a person today about what he did yesterday. Why? He says, never judge a person based on what he did yesterday, because they might have repented overnight. Keep that in mind. Let's try to fix ourselves before we try to fix other people. If there's a particular aspect we find about someone, we have to first fix it within ourselves before we tell that person to fix that which is within themselves. It's all to do with self-purification. The message of Imam Hussain is in that particular regards. When he went, didn't go after worldly means. He went after the mercy and the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not that a person can accept him for who he is. Not that I bring down my morals and my principles in order that someone can take me in or befriend me, or for popularity or for fame. I give up that which I believe in, the principles that I relive every year within this particular Muharram ceremonies. Wallah, I wear tighter clothes. Why? Because it's more popular in my community. I'm going to do this particular adornment. Why? Because it's accepted in this particular community. Does Islam accept it? Would Zainab accept it? We're commemorating Zainab. We're commemorating Imam Hussain. Let's live by what we learn. Not just put it in one ear, take it out the other. Wallah, we've come to the majlis of Imam Hussain. If we shed a tear, it's enough. Because a tear is very valuable for Imam Hussain. Yes, it wipes away sins and oceans of them. However, a tear is not enough for Imam Hussain. You need to act upon that tear as well. You'll be rewarded for it. People come and say, sin all you want, all year round. As long as you cry a tear for Imam Hussain, do you think that's valuable? There's a reward for it, without a doubt. But then what have you learned from Imam Hussain? The person that died in order that we're all in here tonight. The person that died in order that we know the right path. That we know the principles to live by. You know what he taught us? You know why he's immortal till tonight and will be ever remembered within history? He says a very beautiful statement that we need to live by. He says, your souls are only deserving of paradise. All of us, he says, your souls are only deserving of paradise. Do not sell them for anything less. Don't sell yourself short. Don't take off your hijab selling yourself short. The hijab is your pinnacle in order that Allah looks at you to be a Zainabiyya, to be a Fatimiyya. The same applies to men. Don't wear that extra bit tighter just so that your contour lines can be shown. Why? Because Imam Al-Hussain on the 10th of Muharram tells Sayyidah Zainab, bring me clothes so I wear. She brings him a clothing known as turban. He says, I'm not going to wear that. That's for the people that have been humiliated. Why? Because it was tight clothing. He says, I don't want my contour lines to show. We live by Hussein and Zainab on the 10th of Muharram. As much as hijab applies for women, it applies for men. I don't sell myself short. Why? Because Imam Hussain says, my soul deserves paradise. So when Imam Hussain comes on the 10th of Muharram and he sacrifices himself, but before it his entire family, It's for you and I. It's for the world to know that there was a man that didn't care what stood in front of him. He only cared about what Allah wanted and never sacrificed or sold himself short. He never sold his soul because he knew his soul only deserved paradise. That's what we need to live by. On an everyday basis, when we come with the shi'ar, every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. What does it mean? It means that sacrifice that Imam Hussain stood for, the principles that he upheld in Karbala. On Ashur, it's our everyday life. Why? There's a particular quote, it's very beautiful. He says, everyone has the potential within themselves. Listen carefully to this one. Everyone has the potential within themselves to be a Shimr, or to choose to be a Hussein. When? Every day. Every circumstance. Every choice you have to make, you think to yourselves, would Imam Hussein do this for the brothers? Would Zainab do this for the sisters? Or would the opposition army, would Shimr do this if it was in my situation? Every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. That's the manifestation, especially in the West, with so much haram looming around us. We have the reward, if only we grasp it, that we keep strong on our religion. As you go towards Najaf, you go towards Qom, you talk to the grand scholars there. They tell you your 2 rak'ats in the morning are worth more than mine. In the haram of the Ma'soomeen. Don't give that away. Uphold that. So we know for a fact Imam Hussain alayhi afdal salati wassalam, in a conclusive sense, never went to gain materialistic means, nor position, nor wealth. Charles Dickens has an interesting quote. He says, if Hussein went out to quench his worldly desires, then why is it that he took his sister, his wife, and his children? It stands to reason that Imam Hussein only went out to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to sacrifice himself for this religion, for you and me to know the right path. When did he do that? When did he take the stance to tell us this particular issue? It's when he's taken aside by Al-Walid and told to give bay'ah to Yazid. What does the Imam say? Give bay'ah. Nowadays someone tries to bribe you. Someone tries to tell you, take this and you'll save yourself. As a sheikh that narrates, he says, on the way towards Karbala. We're going towards Karbala, and if everyone's been there, you know, the density, the population, very difficult to go through. Some places they take bribes, let you through a little bit easier. So he says, the sheikh says, I was in a taxi, and he says, the taxi man, he wanted to get us there very fast. He says, so he bribed one of the guards. So the guard looked at him, look at this particular point. He looked at him and says, where are you going? He says, I'm going to go visit Imam Hussain. Barakallah bik. He says, do you know why Hussein's great? He says, why? Tell me. He says, because he never took bribes to achieve that which he has achieved. Imam Hussain is taken into a room. He says, give your allegiance to Yazid. Give your bay'ah towards Yazid. What does he say? In a beautiful statement that will ring bells and echo throughout history. And the stance we need to live by. And he says, نحن بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة بنا فتح الله وبنا يختم ويزيد فاسق فاجر شارب الخمور قاتل النفس المحترمة معلن الفسق والفجور. And then what does he say? He says, مثلي لا يبايع مثله. He says, we're from the household and the progeny of Ahlul Bayt. From prophethood we descended. Allah has opened this world with us and will conclude this world with us. And Yazid is a deviant, a corrupt mind, a person that drinks alcohol, a person that has killed the righteousness, that is openly deviant, openly corrupt. And a person like me will never give his allegiance to a person like him. I will not sell myself short. That's the message we need to take home tonight. We will never sell ourselves short if we have Hussein in our lives. If we live by the sacrifice of Hussein. This aspect of immortality that he has is for you and I to learn from. This immortality that Imam Hussein has, and the secret within his message, is because he only went in the path that Allah wanted, not any other path. Yet he achieved the great rank. When he goes towards, the last time he goes towards his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and he takes a nap near the grave of Rasulullah. And he says, "Oh my grandfather, will you not take me? Take me into your grave with you." Rasulullah tells him, he says, "Oh my Hussein." He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a particular rank for you in the hereafter. However, you will not attain that rank except through your martyrdom. Except through your martyrdom. Rasulullah cried when Imam Hussain was born. Imagine a newborn. We're all happy, we're cheerful when we have little ones, when we have sons, when we have daughters. Rasulullah began to bawl his eyes out. Yet he says, "Do not tell Fatima. Don't tell Fatima yet. I'll tell Fatima." Fatima al-Zahra, when he does tell her, Rasulullah speaks to each and every individual in this room. He tells Fatima what's going to happen in Karbala. He says, "Fatima, Hussein will be murdered in Karbala. His household will be killed, from his smallest 6-month-old till his eldest son, Ali Al-Akbar." He says, "All will lie on the plains of Karbala." Fatima al-Zahra begins to cry. Fatima al-Zahra then asks Rasulullah, says, "Oh my father, who will be with my son Hussein on the 10th of Muharram? Will you, oh my father, be alongside him?" Imam Hussein, Rasulullah says, "No, my darling daughter, I will not be with Hussein." He says, "Then Amir al-Mu'mineen." He says, "No, Hussein will be without Amir al-Mu'mineen on the 10th of Muharram." He says, "Father, what about myself?" He says, "Oh Fatima, you yourself won't be next to Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. Al-Hassan," he says, "Al-Hassan will not be alongside Hussein on the 10th of Muharram." He says, "Then who shall be by my darling Hussein?" He says, "Look at this, he's speaking to every single one in this particular room." Rasulullah says, Allah will create for him followers that will mourn him day and night and cry over him when his death comes. As a tradition, and we go into the musibah inshallah, we'll compare Fatima al-Zahra's musibah with Imam al-Hussein. So Jasim Tuarjawi narrates to us. He says, "Every Friday night I recite in the Haram, in Karbala." He says, "One day I went on the outskirts of Karbala. I couldn't make it back on the Friday night." He says, "That particular night in my dream, Fatima al-Zahra came. She says to me, "Oh Sayyid, where were you on this particular night? I was waiting for you in the haram." So Sayyid Jasim says, he says, "Then and there in my dream I began to recite a lamentation for Aba Abdullah, Sayyid al-Shuhada." He begins to recite, and Fatima al-Zahra, my brothers and sisters, look at Fatima. In the dream, she begins to slap herself viciously on her head. Sayyid Jasim looks towards Fatima al-Zahra. He says, "Fatima, oh my mother Fatima, why do you slap your head? We chest beat. We beat our chest." He says, "Oh my Sayyid," he says, "do not blame me, for it pains me because I have a broken rib." He says, "It pains me because I have a broken rib." But we look at Fatima al-Zahra, we look at Imam Hussain on the 10th of Muharram. Let's look at the comparison, brothers and sisters. In Fatima's time, we found that a person comes towards the household of Fatima with fire, and he burns the house down. When we look at Karbala, we found people coming towards the tents of Imam Hussain. We came towards the tents of Zainab and burnt them with fire. In Karbala, we found Imam al-Hussein with a 6-month-old that he raised towards the sky and was pierced from one neck side to the other. Likewise, Fatima al-Zahra had an infant that was miscarried. We found in Fatima al-Zahra's case a particular rib was broken, brothers and sisters. But let's look at Karbala and Imam Hussein when the horses trampled on the body of Aba Abdullah. On the 10th of Muharram, 10 horse riders after the death of Imam Hussein would trample on the body of Aba Abdullah. However, Fatima had a person to bury her in the midst of the night, a person to read Quran over her grave, over her body. However, how was Imam al-Hussein buried, brothers and sisters? After 3 days and 3 nights, we found his body lay bare on the plains of Karbala. Fatima al-Zahra drank water before she died, brothers and sisters. Imam al-Hussein was even taken away from the water and died thirsty. That's why we have when Imam al-Hussein states to us, he says, "Ya Shi'ati, يا شيعتي مهما شربتم عذب ماء فاذكروني أو سمعتم بقتيل أو سليب فاندبوني فأنا السبط الذي من غير جرم قتلوني وبجرد الخيل عمدا بعد قتلي سحقوني إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين.